Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Shameen here. Today I want to talk about DAOs. So I'll basically give an overview of what DAOs even are and explain a little bit how they function, at least the basics, so people can understand. I actually had a 27-minute video that I recorded on not only what DAOs are, but all their main challenges. And it somehow got messed up, so the whole thing didn't upload. So I'm re-uploading it in two parts. So this one is just going to be the basics of what a DAO even is and explain it, because I know a lot of people aren't familiar with DAOs, and even I didn't fully understand how they functioned until a couple months ago when I really started doing more research, even though I've heard about different DAOs over the years, especially since 2017, 2018, with the ICO craze. But DAOs are basically decentralized autonomous organizations. So DAOs, they're communities that try to operate without centralized control. Decentralization is a big part of what makes a DAO or what defines a DAO. And they try to allow community members to not only participate in decision making through governance, but to share in the benefits and rewards of the DAO. So this is why you'll hear the phrase governance, and you'll see things like governance tokens or governance voting on different decentralized protocols or on different decentralized exchanges, because they're trying to incorporate the governance into the function of the protocol or exchange. Basically, governance means that you have a say or a voice in the operation or decision making of that organization. So you can think of DAOs as associations. Typically, they're centered around a certain issue, technology, project, or goal. And they're a new organizational structure that tries to incorporate these themes of decentralization. So egalitarianism, being permissionless, being transparent, allowing people to not only participate in the decision making of the organization, but also share in the benefits and rewards. So that's a unique aspect of DAOs, is it allows the people who support it and take part to actually benefit directly from it. So it's meant to be something that is not necessarily controlled by a single individual or entity, but kind of be shared. It's supposed to be a more flat kind of hierarchy or organizational structure, at least in theory, though realistically, there's a lot of challenges towards meeting some of these ideals from an organizational perspective, even from the creation of a DAO. Most DAOs have founders and core teams and developer teams that worked on it and built it up, or single foundations that are responsible for maintaining the DAO. So they're actually, if you really look at them, they're not truly decentralized right now, though it is a new form of structuring an organization. I feel like it's kind of a mix between the concepts of like unions, and then you're kind of mixing it with technology. So DAOs, typically you become a member either through holding a certain token or a certain amount of that token or cryptocurrency. And then what we saw that was more recent this year is if you get an NFT, you can join certain DAOs, or as some of these NFTs were launching, if you held that NFT, you would be a member of that DAO. As far as how you incorporate your members, or whether you use tokens or NFTs to grant membership to people. I think regulation definitely plays a part in that. Certain jurisdictions have different rules for issuing tokens and cryptocurrencies. You have to be very careful with the SEC, and you have to make sure that you're not issuing anything that can be considered a security, or there's a bunch of regulations that they'll put on you. I think that's why this recent trend with the NFTs has been really big. Like, people don't realize just like how it's being applied in business and practical sense. So now, instead of issuing tokens to people, you issue them an NFT and they're a member of the DAO, which when you issue someone the NFT, there's not really as many regulations around that, though there is certain things that still come into effect with NFTs, such as being considered a security. So you have to be very careful with things like royalties and giving people regular payments or anything that can be considered dividends. So DAOs are definitely an interesting new way to form organizations. There's definitely lots of different kinds of DAOs. So you have your decentralized exchanges and DeFi protocols like Uniswap, AAVE, Sushiswap, Bancor. Those are different decentralized exchanges or DeFi protocols that are also DAOs. You have DAOs like Yearn Finance and Cream Finance that people get into so they can get a high yielding investment. You have incubators like DuckDAO. So this is a DAO where if you have a certain number of tokens, you qualify to whitelist or be part of these private sales for projects that are launching on different blockchains. I want to say they have Ethereum projects, Polkadot projects, and Binance Smart Chain, but I could be wrong. I'd have to check their website. But anyways, this is like one of the big things in DeFi is incubators, or the idea that regular people can get in on these investments. In the typical finance space, you have accredited investors where you need a certain net worth to get into certain private sales or buy certain assets or make certain investments. Or you also have the IPO where it's like the general public has to wait. Meanwhile, all these investors are getting in early. So incubators allow you to buy tokens and invest in different blockchain projects before they have their public sale. It can be very lucrative to do that. You have stablecoin based DAOs. So you have DAI, which is a stablecoin. It's probably one of the most popular stablecoins in the world, which was created by MakerDAO. You have the OHM stablecoin, which some people joke that is not really stable. That was created by OlympusDAO. So these DAOs actually have a stable coin that they've created a whole infrastructure around that's being utilized all over the world. So there's lots of different kinds of DAOs. Really, we haven't even scratched the surface of the different DAO use cases and what we can do with these things. This year, we also started seeing the NFT-based DAOs. So one kind is PleasrDAO. So PleasrDAO is basically what allows you to form a DAO to buy very expensive or high-end NFTs and fractionalize them. So you basically split the ownership of the NFT into fractional shares amongst the members of the DAO. Because think about it, some of these NFTs are going for hundreds of thousands to millions, tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars, I think. So I don't remember what the most expensive NFT is, but some of these things are worth so much money that even just having a piece of it can be huge. Because think about it, You buy an NFT for a couple million, sell it for 10, 20 million, or, buy one for 5,000, 10,000, sell it for 100,000. That's bread. So that's one kind of NFT based DAO where you're kind of teaming up to buy these large NFTs and you're setting up fractional shares. The other type is something we're seeing a lot more commonly now, which is the DAOs like MonkeDAO. So if you buy an NFT or you join an NFT collection, you make an NFT, you automatically become a member of that DAO just by holding that NFT. So a lot of NFT projects have been doing that lately. It's definitely an interesting way to set up membership to a DAO. I actually like it a lot. I think there's a lot of technological and even hardware implications with how to set up DAO memberships so it can have real world impact, but that's a video for another time. You even have goal-based DAOs, or you have DAOs that are based on certain objectives. So Constitution DAO, which was just on the news, that was a DAO because it was formed because the Constitution of the United States of America was being auctioned. So they formed this Constitution DAO because they wanted to buy it. So people joined this DAO and donated their money to be a part of this, so just so they could say that they bought the Constitution, which I think they put up like 20 something mil. I want to say like 22 to 26 million dollars to try to buy the Constitution. I don't know the exact amount they had, but they didn't even achieve it, unfortunately. They got outbid by some random billionaire here in the U.S. I want to say that he spent about 42 to 45 million to buy the Constitution, and then I guess he decided to give it to some museum to hold it. But you can definitely look that up. That was an interesting use case there, and just goes to show that as more blockchains develop, we're going to see a lot more different kinds of DAOs and related services. And right now, the possibility and the use cases are endless. It's really only up to imagination and willpower. Like, who the hell would think to make a DAO to buy the Constitution? It's like that movie National Treasure or something. So that was an interesting one. Though, since they didn't get the Constitution, I'm wondering how they're going to pivot the mission of their DAO or their goals. But that was interesting. And this just goes to show what's possible when it comes to organizing DAOs and the potential they have as organizations. An article from CoinDesk in August of this year, 2021, I think it said the top DAOs are holding over $6 billion in funds. Who knows what that number is now? Probably even more since that was a few months ago. But DAOs are a new organizational structure that are definitely making some big waves. So this is an example of DAO Fund Allocation, and just the concept of being transparent and open with funds and not necessarily belonging to a single individual or entity. This is pretty much what you can see in some real life DAOs. A lot of this was based off the ENS DAO, the Ethereum name server token, created their own DAO recently. Some of y'all might have got the ENS airdrop. If you had an ENS website or domain name, you could have got like 4 to 5 figures in airdrops, which you can even see here. I used theirs as a template, but they had 25% of their funds allocated to the airdrop. So part of the idea of a DAO is that everyone is sharing in this profit making and the benefits of this DAO, as well as participating and contributing. You can see there's a allocation for Discord users. There's a treasury fund. It's like general DAO allocation. And through governance or voting and participation and um, community decision making, you can actually decide how to allocate those funds and how to use them. Of course, then you have like different contributors, maybe donations, advisors, core contributors. So here's the thing with DAOs, and one of the big challenges with decentralizing a DAO or making it more decentralized and differentiating it from a typical uh, organizational structure like you might see in a corporation or nonprofit is that the fact that there's a core team usually involved in DAOs, especially in the creation of a DAO and the overall guiding of the DAO and carrying out some of its core functions. It's hard to remove that, um, that aspect of being somewhat centralized because in a way you are kind of relying on a core team. I guess maybe you can look at it more of the ownership aspect or the fact that many decisions are joint, but there's a lot of work to be done in the DAO space. So that's something that's a challenge that DAOs are dealing with now and that they're going to continue to deal with as the space evolves, and especially when they start to introduce more regulations. So that brings us to the current challenges that are facing DAOs. So I'll make another video getting more into depth on each and every one of these challenges and how they apply to DAOs, but this is just a summary of the main challenges. So number one is government regulation. Uh, the SEC, the IRS, the tax implications, the issues with issuing anything that can be considered a security. Now you're looking at the fact that this is not a truly defined organizational structure in any modern legal sense. This is something new and unprecedented. That's the case with both DAOs and NFTs. So this is kind of uncharted territory. You have the delegation of authority and responsibility. So if it's supposed to be a decentralized organization, then how are you making decisions? Who's responsible for dispersing payments? Now the smart contracts enabled by the blockchain technology is supposed to help out a lot with this, but realistically, there is a lot of human interaction and decision making and things that go into operating any kind of complex organization that's going to have to be balanced out when it comes to running a DAO. Compensation and incentive structure, which ties into both of the previous points. How are you going to pay people? How are you going to incentivize people? How are you going to keep things aligned? How are you going to make things fair, transparent? That also kind of ties in with the operations and communications. Realistically, how are you carrying out the daily operations of the DAO? How are you all communicating? Some people say the DAOs are just chat rooms with bank accounts, but how do you really make them truly lean and decentralized organizations? What kind of tech stacks are you going to have to communicate? What kind of software are you going to use? How are you going to organize your teams and structure things? There's a lot to take into account. And this is all kind of experimental as well. Then lastly, it's how do you measure progress and success with your DAO? Because as we saw, there's also lots of different kinds of DAOs. You have some DAOs that are just DeFi protocols, so financial protocols, which maybe that's more straightforward because you can just try to get as much profit. But what about the ones where you have an actual objective, like Constitution DAO was trying to get the Constitution, which they failed to do. So now how do they adapt and pivot? Or how are they now going to allocate all those, tens of millions of dollars that they have, built up through building their DAO? How do you also pivot over time as far as, okay, let's say you form a DAO and it has a 1-year roadmap. Then what about after year one? How are we going to decide what to do? How do we even measure our success? Is it all going to be based on financial, some sort of incentives, some sort of overarching goal? certain kind of progress or, KPIs. Who knows? It's all kind of open to interpretation, and also it's going to vary by organization. So that was my talk on DAOs. Hopefully, I was able to, um, enlighten people on that and make things a little more clear. I'll definitely be making some more videos, getting more into depth. This was supposed to just be kind of an introduction, and hopefully I didn't lose anybody and I was pretty clear.